Hi there. Today we are jumping into the listing agreement. So exciting. I love the contracts. I know that they can be a bit daunting, so just hang with me and we're going to go line by line, step by step. All right? You can follow me on the screen right here. So the first paragraph here is the authorization for the brokerage to market the property. And that would be the seller providing that authorization to Keller Williams Marquis. So this line 1 would be the seller hereby appoints Keller Williams Marquis, goes in that first blank. On line 2, the office address. So that would be 1254 University Drive, Suite 200, Edwardsville, Illinois 62025. And then you come down to line 3, that would be Keller Williams Marquis' office phone number. So that would be 618-307-5616. With the contract, you want to be sure that every blank is filled in. So don't leave a blank. So as we move down, this next blank on line 5 would be for the purchase price. So that would be the amount that you are listing the property for. You will gather that information from doing a CMA, a market analysis. You'll gather different reports, and we'll get into all of that information another day. For today, we're just learning the contract, okay? As we go down, we've established that list price, and the blanks here provide for the marketing dates. And so you put in when this listing is going to go live. So in this blank, say your listing appointment is on the 23rd of the month, but you're not going to have your photographer or your stager, or maybe the seller isn't ready to list until the 30th of the month. So in this blank here, you don't put the 23rd, you put the 30th, because that's when it's going to go live. And so you put that date, the date that they're ready to have it go live and active on the market. So say the 30th day of whatever month it is and the year. And then typically a listing agreement used to be an average time of 6 months. Depends really on the market activity and the seller's desire. You would want to ask for up to 6 months and explain to the seller that obviously you have a lot of upfront costs in coordinating and arranging the stager or the photographer, your marketing materials that you're going to invest in. Of course, your time in researching their property and coming up with the data to establish that list price. And then, of course, all of the efforts that you have in advertising and promoting that property. So that's why you want to ask for 6 months, to give you an opportune time to get the property sold. Now, a seller may ask that you list the home for 3 months. It's absolutely your choice, but don't minimize the service that you provide. So be confident enough in your expertise, in your professionalism, and in the service you provide to maybe negotiate that time out a bit further. Okay? And if you need help with that, obviously Tina or myself are here to help you with that and coach you through some scripts. Okay, so that is our basic authorization, marketing period, office contact information. That's really what that first paragraph is all about. So we come down to line 16. Are you tax exempt? Where do you find this information? You can ask the seller. Many times the seller maybe not even be aware of the tax exemptions that they have. So you can find that information by going to the county website, whether it's St. Clair County, Madison County, whatever county the property's in. Go to that county website and look up that address or look up that parcel ID number. And then you can determine what exemptions exist on that current tax bill for that property. So you would mark yes, probably homestead exemption, maybe senior freeze. There's all kinds. Maybe it's a veteran's exemption. So you want to make sure that you know that information up front, and you can do your research prior to a listing appointment so that you're solid on that information. Okay, so now we move down to paragraph 2, property address. This first blank here would be the actual address of the property. So 123 Smith Street in Belleville, Illinois, whatever the zip code is. And then this next blank would be the legal description. So where do you get the legal description? You find that on the tax records. So whether you go to the realist report or you go to the county tax assessments office website, you will find that legal description at either of those locations. And then the next line is the parcel ID number. And again, your source would be realist or the county tax. So those numbers and that description are available there. I do like to use the Realist program, and you have that on your Maris product site. So if you log into Maris and you have your products, that's where your matrix is. Realist is one of those apps on that site. So you can just click on that Realist report, search the address, and you'll be able to gather this information there. So again, property address here, legal description here. Line 20 would be the parcel ID number, and then line 21 is the lot size. So if it's acreage, you want to put in the amount of acreage. However, if it's just a residential home on a 0.2 acre lot, you'll want to put in the dimensions, 70 by 125 or whatever it may be. So sometimes it'll say IRR behind the numbers. That means irregular, meaning all sides aren't the same. So that would be with that information. Line 22, reference being held to the plat thereof recorded in the recorder's office of blank county. So just fill in the county there. So line 23 isn't applicable in a lot of homes. If it is a standard home with a slab or a crawl space or a basement, it probably isn't a mobile home. Now, there are manufactured homes, there are mobile homes that have been placed on basements. So if you're not sure, ask. If the home's been there, if it's a 70, 80, 90-year-old home, it's not a mobile home. But you'll want to verify that information. And again, if it's applicable, then you need to fill in these blanks. But most likely it's not. And so then in that case, you would just put N/A for not applicable. Or you can put dashes through it. Or you can put X's on the blanks. Something just to verify that this doesn't apply to this listing. Okay? So that would go in these blanks. And then subdivision, you'll want to fill in that information. Again, that's available on tax records or realist report. HOA fees, you generally find out that information from the homeowner, from the seller. So that would be a conversation with them. So you'll enter that amount there. Again, if it doesn't apply, put NA, dashes, or X's, something to acknowledge that that doesn't apply to this listing. Okay, so our next paragraph, 3, inclusions and exclusions. This paragraph lists some things that are typically considered included with the property, okay? It's a long list. I'm not going to go through the list, but please feel free to read those. If you have questions about those inclusions, just come to me or Tina or Pam and ask us. We're here for you. Basically, the general rule is if it's attached to the house, whether by wires electronically or by screws or nails or somehow completely attached, then that is an inclusion. So if it's not attached that way, say a mirror hanging above the fireplace and it's got the wire and so it's just hanging on some nails, that's not an attachment. That's not included. So that can be removed. So again, a list of things that are included because they are considered attachments, and then there's a blank to add included. And many times sellers may leave the refrigerator, the dishwasher, maybe the shed out back. Those are things that you would write in this blank here. Usually there is some form of inclusion. So if there's not, again, put N/A, X's, dashes, something. But typically there are inclusions in most sales. Line 30 are the exclusions. So this would be things that are attached that the seller is taking with them. So you want to be sure that you get those items identified in the listing agreement, and then you also need to mirror that in the listing remarks when you put it live on Maris, so that folks seeing the house know that's not included. What I typically advise my sellers is that if you know you're going to take it with you, let's get it out of here now. Let's get it unattached now so that there's no question and there's no debate about it later. Some examples of that would be like a chandelier that's in the entry foyer or dining room, sentimental value or something. Get it out of there, put a different light in, and move on with the listing and the showings. Another example would be very popular now, the Ring doorbell, the thermostats that you can control with your phones, right? So those are attached. They are physically attached with screws, nails, whatever, and wiring. So that is part of the house. That would be an inclusion. So if the seller is wanting to take those with them, then they need to identify that as excluded, and honestly, they should remove them before they list the house to avoid that confusion. All right, so now we're down to designated agency. This is where you are named as the seller's designated agent. So the sponsoring broker is Keller Williams Marquis, and they designate you. So you would type in your name here as the seller's designated agent. All right, that is page 1. So we move on to page 2. Oh, let me go back. Initials. Your seller needs to initial the bottom of every page. Don't forget. Okay, commission. So we are entering into this discussion of commission. So the commission is generally, in today's market, we cannot have a set commission. So this is a tough conversation. But a general amount that is common would be a 5%, 6%, 7% commission. So you establish that amount with your client. So you and the seller have a conversation and you establish that amount. You don't want to cut yourself short. You are worth your wages. So, be confident again in your worth and your value as a professional who is working hard for your seller, okay? So I'm going to kind of read this paragraph because it's super important. If during the term of the agreement, anyone, including the seller, produces a buyer ready, willing, and able to purchase the property, or if within blank days, commission date, after the expiration of this agreement, a sale is made to any person to whom the property was shown without incurring a commission to another sponsoring broker, seller agrees to pay sponsoring broker a commission of blank with a minimum commission of blank. Okay, long sentence. This number here, different agents put different numbers there. You could put 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. I've seen agents put 180 days. It's up to you and the seller. This is a term you and the seller agree on. What it means is, say your listing is set to expire in June of whatever given year, and say June 20th. And so somebody had come to your open house June 10th and they didn't have an agent. You worked with them. You got them to sign a buyer's agreement, maybe even. But they hadn't purchased that house. They hadn't put an offer in. So June 10th passes, no offer. June 20th passes, this listing expires. Say they come back July 1st and they say, you know what, we really did like that house. We'd like to put an offer in on it. So this paragraph here, and that within the number of days, protects you as the listing agent. Say you even have 30 days. Well, July 1st isn't 30 days after June 20th. You're within that window of opportunity. So that seller is still legally required to pay commission to Keller Williams Marquis because the sale really procured from that showing on June 10th. Okay? Long explanation, but I hope you understand that. If you don't, again, questions are always fine. So again, 30, 60, 90 days is typical. Some agents put it way out there, but it's, again, that's a term that's agreed upon between you and your client. Okay, so then the commission, this is the total commission for the listing. So whether that's 5, 6, 7%, whatever you and your seller agree upon, that number goes here with a minimum commission of blank. So where this number really comes in is on properties that are maybe priced lower, okay? So if you have a 6% commission on a $30,000 home, that amount isn't really very much. And so you want to protect your bottom dollar and your investment in your marketing material and your time and effort and promoting of this property. So a lot of times what I put in this blank would be a minimum of $3,000. Because that 6% on a $30,000 home is not going to net me $3,000, right? So that is what I put in there. So moving forward, this next sentence, if a cooperating broker is involved, that sponsoring broker will be paid blank percent of sale price. So in this blank, this is what the buyer's agency would receive. So at Keller Williams Marquis, we have a minimum of 2.5% that needs to go in there. So that would be the number that you put in there, 2.5%. Unless, if your seller has agreed to pay out 7%, then you could certainly up this to 3% or 3.5%, depending on what you and your seller agree upon. Again, these are all in agreement with what your seller would desire and what you agree to provide. So, but Keller Williams Marquis would require a minimum of 2.5% there. Okay, so that is the discussion on the commission. Moving down, in the event that the seller employs another sponsoring broker, an exclusive agent following the expiration of this agreement, the seller shall be obligated to pay only one brokerage commission. In other words, if your listing expires or your listing terminates or your listing withdraws and another sponsoring broker would pick up that listing, the seller is only obligated to pay one sponsoring broker. So that's where agency comes in, and you want to be sure that you are representing yourself and Keller Williams Marquis as that seller's agent. You definitely want to have that agency discussion with them and confirm that they're willing to pay you that commission, and you maintain that good relationship with your seller. In the event that the listing does terminate or expire and they hire another broker, they no longer are obligated to pay you or Keller Williams Marquis. They would then have that agreement with their new sponsoring broker. So the marketing period would be, again, referred to back up here on page 1. That's your marketing period. So once that expires, or if the listing terminates for some reason, then the seller is no longer obligated to pay Keller Williams Marquis the commission. Okay, so we're going to move down to the authorization for dual agency. So this is a huge discussion. Dual agency is allowed in the state of Illinois. It is not legally authorized nationwide. So we have this discussion in our contracts in Illinois. So authorization for dual agency. What dual agency means is you are representing the seller in the listing. And if you also bring a buyer to the transaction, the state of Illinois allows you to represent both the buyer and the seller. However, there are guidelines and stipulations in what you can and cannot do. And you must have this discussion with your seller prior to listing. So when you're sitting down with them or you're sending them the documents over DocuSign, you have to have this conversation with them about agency. So of course, as their agent, you're representing them, you're marketing their property, you are wanting the best for them and working toward the best for your seller, right? So you can, as we said, represent more than one party in a transaction. So down here on line 77 are things that a licensee can do for clients when acting as a dual agent. You can, and you should, treat all clients honestly, provide information about the property to the buyer, disclose all latent material defects in the property that are known to the licensor, disclose financial qualifications of the buyer to the seller. That would be the pre-approval letter from the lender with a stated amount, and you cannot waiver off that amount. You cannot discuss anything further than what the lender provides to the buyer provides to you, and gives you permission to share with the seller. Number 5, explain real estate terms. Number 6, help the buyer to arrange for property inspections. Explain closing costs and procedures. Help the buyer compare financing alternatives. Provide information about comparable properties that have sold so both clients may make educated decisions on what price to offer or accept. Seller's initials at the bottom of the page. These initials here do not verify acceptance or declining of dual agency. These initials here are just saying they are initialing this page of information. They've read it, they acknowledge they've seen it. That's all those initials are. So dual agency can provide data and statistics, market analysis, cannot, well, let's get into the cannots as opposed to me free flowing here. Okay, line 88, what a licensee cannot disclose to clients when acting as a dual agent. You cannot disclose confidential information that the licensee may know about the clients without that client's permission. One common question is, why are they moving? A buyer may ask that. You cannot discuss that unless the seller has provided you permission to discuss those facts, those reasons. So as a listing agent, you are privy to a lot of personal and financial information about the seller. You cannot disclose that information unless you have permission from the seller. So whatever that may be, it's all confidential if it was in a conversation between you and the seller. If it's something you see on Facebook that they've posted, well, that's pretty public. But again, you should always get the seller's permission. Don't just assume it's okay to communicate information. Always get permission to share any information about the seller with the buyer. Okay, number 2, the price of the seller will take other than the list price without permission of the seller. So in other words, if as the listing agent, you know that the seller would be willing to take maybe a lower price than what you're listing it at, you cannot disclose that information. Number 3, the price or terms the buyer is willing to pay without permission of the buyer. So you may know that the buyer can handle paying $10,000 over list price. You cannot communicate that information. Number 4, a recommended or suggested price or terms the buyer should offer. Or number 5, a recommended or suggested price or terms the seller should counter with or accept. Many times when you're sitting at the table with either party, they will ask, what do you think I should do? You cannot answer that question, especially in a dual agency situation. You can present the data, and that's what you should tell your client. This is the market analysis. This is the data that's available. This is what's happening in our market today. It's your decision on how you want to respond. You tell me how you would like to respond. You can counter, you can accept, or you can reject. What terms are you agreeable to? What terms are you questioning? Let them talk it out. Let them figure it out, but it's their choice. So after that discussion, then you have the authorization for dual agency, and they can choose yes or no. Sometimes on your automated DocuSign, sometimes it'll put both places with initials. So you just need to backspace or delete that for whichever one they're not. If you're in person, obviously they would just initial yes or no. All right, so moving on, attorney. This confuses some folks. Really what this is putting in the title company. Ask your seller, what title company do you prefer to use? And write in the title company here. If they don't know, you can suggest 3 or 4 different title companies in the area, maybe that you've worked with or that you have a relationship with, or that you've heard from another agent in the market center that they're a great title company to work with. But if the seller asks you your opinion, you need to provide 3 or 4 options. Okay, paragraph 8, seller agrees. So this paragraph basically says that the seller will permit showings, will allow the sign in the yard, will keep their property safe and available for showings to where there's no hazards. They'll keep the grass mowed, they'll take care of their property so that through closing, they'll keep the water, electric on because those have to be on for the occupancy inspections, for the inspections, etc. And that they will permit the lockbox on the house to allow for showings. So all of those things, read through them one by one so that you have a great understanding of them. But the seller does have some responsibility here. Initials by the sellers at the bottom. And that paragraph actually continues at the top of page 4. And then we have the interior pictures. So we need a signature or initials there, either or is fine, and the date, and that just states that they're okay with interior pictures. The reason that's so important is because obviously we're putting their pictures on the internet, and so we need to have verification from them that they're okay with those pictures being online. All right then, home warranty. So some folks, they want to offer a home warranty. Some folks are completely against home warranties. Just feel your seller out. It is a great product. There is seller coverage while it's listed that typically is free until the date of closing, and then the premium is paid at closing for the buyer to be covered for the first year. Depends on the product, depends on the company, and we can help you with research on those companies. But you need to have that discussion in the listing appointment about the home warranty. So you can check the offer. If the seller wants to offer a home warranty, then you need to put the company that they're going to use here, and then the cost of the home warranty here. And different home warranties have different premiums and different products. So again, you'll have to do your research depending on the company. If they don't want to offer a home warranty, then you would check this box that they are not offering the home warranty. If it's new construction or newer construction, it may have a builder warranty on it, and so you'll want to include that information for a builder warranty. And then finally, the non-discrimination. So we don't discriminate against anybody for any reason ever, and so we put that in bold. It doesn't matter what the situation is. There are protected classes, and we stand hand in hand with those protected classes. Some sellers may have some kind of a prejudice and they don't want their house seen by somebody. And so it's a real frank and honest and open conversation with your seller. We don't allow that. We have a non-discrimination policy, period. So most folks, I think, are okay with that, but I have rubbed shoulders and had listing appointments with some folks who haven't been. And I don't sign those listings because it's a violation of my code of ethics. It's a violation of my personal beliefs, and it's a violation of the contract. So definitely a serious conversation to have with your seller. If you think it's an issue, I can certainly jump in and be your support and have that conversation with your client. All right. I think that's enough for today. We're going to take a break, and tomorrow we'll pick it up from there.